Welcome to Doctors at Work. My name's Matt Daniel, and this podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. Today, we're having a discussion about how you make creative ideas happen. My guest David noticed a problem, he got an idea, and then brought it to fruition. And the result was a book that features 100 different voices and aims to improve doctors' well-being. In this episode, we talk about creativity, and we both agree that we already all are creative. It's important to notice what excites and what frustrates us, and to wake up and bring our whole selves to work. Great ideas might be sabotaged by fear of failure or worrying about what anybody else thinks, but David advises that of course you can't please everybody, and an attitude of trial and error is much better than aiming for the perfect outcome. Welcome, David. Tell me about yourself.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So I'm married. I have 7 children, and I went to medical school in 2000. I got kicked out in 2003, and then went to medical school again in 2016 after being blackmailed by my dad to do that. And then there was lockdown. So that's my history with medicine. I'm not a qualified doctor, but I spent the better part of the last 2 decades plus in and out of medicine. And along the way, I'm a writer and musician as well. But along the way, a big part of what I've done has been encouraging and I guess coaching medics who felt frustrated in the system and giving them ideas of what they can do within their jobs, giving them ideas for how they could explore other avenues. And I'm really excited about helping people just unlock their full potential. So that's me in the tiniest bit.
What's an exciting career, and I think we found each other because you were writing a book, and I saw what you were doing, and I contributed to the book as well, and you've made that book happen, and it is an amazing piece of work. Can you tell me a little bit about the book?
Yes, it's called Medic SOS, and you can get it at okdoctor.net/SOS. That would be Sierra Oliver Sierra. I'm not so good with that alphabet. The way it started, I'm on one of the Facebook private groups called Medic Footprints, and I come across you there. That's the first I came across you, where you're encouraging people. And every now and again, just that's what I've been doing, going to different forums and trying to encourage medics who are just feeling really stressed, really burnt out, and having been kicked out of med school, forced into med school, and surviving just all sorts of bits in the medical career of sorts. I'm aware of some of the frustrations that people can feel. And so one of the days I just went on, and there was a medic who posted anonymously. And this person was just what came through was this person is really at their wit's end. And there's quite being aware of the numbers of medics who've committed suicide, you're feeling depressed, feeling that they don't have an outlet. So I'm really sensitive to that sort of, the warning signs. So I just immediately just responded with a quick post, breathe, stop, and just walk them through as if I was walking somebody back from a ledge. And just give really detailed, practical advice based on my own experience and experience of talking to lots of medics. And that was really, there was a positive response. So I thought, oh, wow, I wonder what would happen if I got the responses from other medics. And really the voice was saying, real medics, people who are practicing the front lines. But I thought, well, what if I got all of those and put it into a book? It's something I've done several times over the years with other areas. But I thought, I wonder what would happen if I did that. But rather than just doing it and then saying, ta-da, here it is, what I did was I posted that as a question. I just made up a title. I said to the people on the forum who'd liked the comment that I posted for the medic, I said, I'm thinking of writing a book, putting together a book called Medic SOS, and which has 100 insights from real life medics. And you're going to see their real names, their real faces, the links to where they are online, so you can have a conversation with them. And I'm thinking of releasing this book to raise £10,000 for charities that are supporting physicians who are struggling with just burnout. Which charities would you recommend? And then there were responses, and people say, "Oh, doctor's in distress. You okay, doc?" And that sort of thing. So just that was the next step. Where I thought, okay, there's support from this from the community. Not millions of likes. It was maybe 15, 16, but that was enough to just say, is this something that's resonating with anyone other than just me? And that was enough to say, yes, it is. So then I took the next step, which was put together a Google form and said, okay, there's a form, I'm ready, I'm gathering contributions, here you go. And then I just started sharing that all around because I've been able to test it within a community just through a conversation, the way you would with a friend over coffee, saying, think about doing this. And they say, oh, yeah. And just through the actual positive response, that gave me the encouragement to just do it and contact medics everywhere. And I was doing this November time and going to December, really bad time to try and get people's attention because one, medics are busy, it's Christmas, people are winding down the year already. But I had people respond really generously and really quickly. And I've done projects like this before, which have taken me over a year. Some of them are still ongoing. The whole thing was done within 46 days, and we were able to launch the book on Christmas Day. And I've had people since then respond saying, sorry, don't check LinkedIn. And I say, oh, thanks for the response. Guess what? The book's ready. You can see it here at okdoctor.net/SOS. And so lots of positive responses. So that's how it went from just trying to help one person. And then that, like a snowball going down a hill, it just built into getting others involved, building momentum, and getting people in the community to take part.
And I have to say, for me, it's an amazing story, and I love how it started with something quite small, and identifying that there's a problem, there's a need, and there's one solution that you can offer, and how you've taken that and created something that's ended up being really amazing. That is raising money, and has managed to get 100 different doctors to give you their thoughts and opinions. And I think that the topic for that I thought we talk about today would be, how do you make stuff happen in the NHS?
Mm.
That's what you did. You had an idea and you made stuff happen. But maybe if I kind of start at the beginning, is if you think for in this and for other people, how do we get ideas? Where do these ideas come from? Because often you need an idea, but where do ideas come from? And what kind of a mindset, what kind of a person do you need to be to get ideas that have mileage?
Yes, the starting point is, I think it was Einstein who said, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that caused the problem. And I remember I had a maths teacher when I did A-level maths, Miss Atkinson, and she was really good at, other maths teachers would just throw sums at you and say, do 100, because I studied in Uganda as well as in Kuwait. So I'd had a mixture of teachers, but she was really good at just saying, in this topic, there are only 5 types of questions. There aren't hundreds of questions. There are only 5 types of questions you could be asked in an exam. And if they're really sneaky, there's a 6th one. The way to solve these, we're going to go back to basics, back to fundamentals. And I think that's when it comes to ideas and making things happen or making changes in your life. I think the problem people can have is they don't recognize the filters that they have in place, the limiting beliefs they have in place. They just say, how do I get from where I am to where that is, without changing anything? It's like, no, let's start again. So before somebody's a doctor, they're a human being. What does that mean? Well, you're not your appendix, is a way I remember it. We are spirit beings. We have souls, minds, will, and emotions. We live in bodies. And this is something that I know all medics listening to this, you verified it. I remember seeing a patient die during one of my rotations in Uganda, and the doctors are working, just trying to keep him alive. And then I just remember just looking at his eyes, and then the spark just left. And I saw, okay, his body is physically here. They're still working on it. But the thing that made him a person, that's gone. It's left. So when you realize that you are a person, you're not your physical body, you're not even your thoughts. Somehow, whatever term you want to call it, but that spirit part of you, that's the real you. So when you recognize you're a person, bigger than just the training you've had, then it comes down to, who are you as a person? And all of this is not philosophical. These are fundamentals you need to just recognize, that the thing that makes you you, the things that annoy you, the things that capture your attention, you need to pay attention to that. We aren't the systems we train in aren't really good at teaching us to recognize who we are as people, because they're not designed for that. They're designed to churn out more teachers, more engineers, more doctors, whatever it is. So that's important, because when you when you recognize that your perspective as a human being, as a person, is valid and important, then the tiny things you're noticing might be bigger than you realize. And usually when you recognize that it's not a big thing you're looking for, it's just the things that you find curious. An example of this was Ignaz Semmelweis, just I don't know, 16th century, 17th century, but he was a physician. And he noticed that the women who gave birth, who were attended to by doctors, were dying in childbirth more than those who attended to by midwives. So he got curious and said, I wonder why this is the case. And he noticed that back then, the doctors would be going from the dissecting room and then going straight to attending a woman who was giving birth, but not so for the midwives. So he figured out that something was traveling from the dissecting rooms to where the midwives were. And he was deemed an idiot, but it was just a tiny observation when he said there's something going. They said, oh, really? Some invisible thing is carrying this disease through. I mean, of course, now we know about germ theory, but he was, laughed at. He was, put in a mental asylum, and then years later, his observation was valid. But all that to make the point that when you recognize that you are a person before you are a doctor or whatever title you are, then you as a human being, what are you noticing? What excites you? What annoys you? What do you think? What do you keep talking about with your friends, with your colleagues, or with your mum on the phone, or Skyping with some friends from school, saying, "Oh, this bit really annoys me," and not in terms of if you're in ENT, it doesn't have to be an ENT thing. Just what thing, uh, what keeps annoying you, what keeps catching your attention, however small. Because when you recognize it, same with, as I was saying with Medic SOS, for me, because of the path I've taken, I reacted really to the post that was posted anonymously in a way that somebody else who was just checking their Facebook feed wouldn't have. That's not bad or good. That's just me. And the same thing is true. There's no judgment on the things that catch your attention or the things you're interested in or the things you're really not interested in. But when you start from there, it's a really cool thing because you have the passion to do something about it. If you just have the encouragement saying, okay, there's something, it's important that I explore this, do a Google search or ask somebody or post a comment, put something on your social media feed, say, wondering about such and such. It doesn't have to trend. It doesn't have to go viral. It doesn't have to bring you any money. It's just honor the idea that you've gotten. And then that will lead to the next one. I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said that don't worry about seeing the whole staircase. Just take the next step and the next step. And these are things we hear all the time and we know to be true. But the things that are easy to do are the things that are easy not to do. So it starts with recognizing you're a person, and then from recognizing that you as a person have things that catch your attention, make you think, I wonder what that is, and then just take the tiniest step in taking action in honoring that observation.
That to me sounds really brilliant and really powerful, and it's, I guess that there's two things there. What happened in your case was that firstly that somebody else might not have noticed, because I think there are so many of us that go through life and we don't notice anything. I don't think. Does that sound fair? Do you think there are lots of us just don't notice anything in life? I'll give you an opportunity to disagree with me in a second.
No, it's all right.
I think lots of people go through life and they don't notice, and that's probably because it's tap 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 on the mobile phones. I'm worrying about this. I've got that tomorrow. Sort of we're busy and we don't focus. We don't notice what's actually happening in the moment. Whereas what you've outlined is you notice what was going on for the other person, as well as what was going on for you. But there's two things. The first one is you need to notice stuff in general, which I think lots of us aren't focused in time. We worry about the past and the future all the time, and we fail to notice what's right in front of us. Number one, so there's that idea that you notice at all, and then number two is then about kind of what you said about knowing yourself and what resonates with you, and then having the insight, but also the courage sort of to clock that this is what matters to you.
Yeah, on the point of noticing, I'll agree with you to an extent. But what you made me think of was a quotation from Sherlock Holmes. One of my, I loved reading Sherlock Holmes stories. But when what he was just one story where he's exasperated with Watson just not getting something, the famous detective, he said, everyone sees things. I've just trained myself to notice what I see. And I think being honest, given that this is doctors at work, the job description is to notice things. But I think people can kind of half show up. They show up with a stripped down version of themselves. They maybe don't say the thing that's there because they worry what's going to happen.
Mhm.
But I think there's so on the one hand, people are afraid, okay, that's fine. But that they notice, no. We have the ability to notice, but we've disconnected. People show up, they go through the motions, but I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't show up as your full self, even if you think, oh, it's just another job, it's just this, I'm worried about and that's a bit of another conversation. But I think what would happen tomorrow if you showed up as your full self in the same thing, not even if it's not the job that you love,
Mhm.
what would happen if you decided to love your job instead of trying to find a job that you love? What would happen if you showed up and said, right, if this was my last day here, what would I do here? What would I say in this moment? And I think you'd find that that energy and that power actually doesn't keep you trapped in it. It opens your eyes to more options for changing things.
Mhm.
So I think you're right in saying that people don't actively notice things because they're busy. But I think the pushback is that it's not particularly for doctors, you're noticing things for your patients, you're noticing all the time. I think it's just recalibrating and saying, what could I notice beyond my day to day?
Yeah. So how do we how do those people that don't necessarily, people who see but they don't notice what's going on within them or what's going on around them, how do we move? How does one move to paying attention to what's actually happening within them as well as around them?
Well, a simple exercise which I came across in my third year at Cardiff University, I read a book by Julia Cameron called The Artist's Way, or maybe it was The Sound of Paper, but one of her books, she talks about two tools. And one of them that was really valuable was the tool called Morning Pages. I don't know if you've come across that, but the idea is every single day you get a notebook and by hand write three longhand pages by hand, and then that's it. And it could be you sit down with the paper with your notebook, and you just write an A5 notebook, and you just write, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. You don't stop until you've written 3 pages. And then eventually your brain will get bored with writing, I don't know what to write. You'll write something which makes you go, oh, was that in there? Take you 20 minutes or so. Same way that people do jogging and so on. But what that forces you to do is it helps you get the noise that's there where you think, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. But what happens when you sit down and put it on paper, then now the noise isn't in your head. And now there's a bit of space to think. And so you do that. It's a simple exercise. It's easy to do. It's easy not to do. I recommend doing it because what I found was I was able to write my way through problems, and you don't have to be a writer, registered trademark, or whatever that means to people. It's just you just need to be able to write, which as doctors, you're having to do a lot of admin. You're doing a lot of writing anyway. So you just get a notebook. Nobody reads it. You don't even have to read it. The importance is not in you reading it or showing it to anyone. The importance is in you writing. So when you do that, and I think it's good advice writing on pen and paper, because your paper is not going to give you a notification from Twitter or say you've got an email. It's just it's pen paper you write, and I think that simple act will unlock your ability to because your brain is noticing things all the time. The but we're just not listening. We're receiving thoughts. And I think that simple action is enough to interrupt now I'm on my phone, I'm plugged in all the time, and you'll never notice anything other than what your filters on your phone point you to.
Mhm.
So I think that one is there are lots of things we could say on that, but I think that one, if you did that one thing for 30 days, you'd be amazed at how your life transforms.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Please click subscribe so you'll be notified when new episodes become available. This podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. You can be part of that mission too by forwarding this show to one person who you think might benefit from listening. Thank you. Now on with the show. This sounds really creative to me, and I'm loving that. And one of the things that in some of my conversations with doctors I have is that people that probably were very creative when they were 20 or before they went to medical school, they find themselves being 30, 40, 50 and just going to work and doing autopilot, and all of that creativity, the novelty, the noticing is gone. People turn up, and they do the job. And then they go home. And I think lots of people would love to do the kind of creativity that we talked about, but perhaps they don't know how to. And I think there's something about how we're trained, because we are trained to recognize patterns, and we're trained to follow guidelines and rules, and all of that is right. But in trying to make us, all is sort of into this identikit healthcare professional. The problem with that is that it's very easy for some of the creativity to disappear, because I'm guessing there'll be huge chunks of doctors that might listen to this and they're just going to sort of say, this is just laughable, the fact that I should be writing in the morning. Yeah. Or again, if I give you my example, one of the things I sometimes do in theatre, I bring picture cards in and I get people to pick a picture card that represents what the team is like or another team member. And I remember the first time I brought that in and people thought, like, Matt's gone mad. Yeah, why is he bringing picture cards asking us to pick photos? Yeah, but I mean, maybe they still think that, but they enjoy it. They enjoy it.
Yeah.
They might think that I'm mad, but they enjoy it. But I think it's as doctors, it's very. I think it's hard to keep that creativity going, and I think we would be better human beings and better doctors if we did consciously try and recreate some of the creativity that you've talked about.
Yeah, well, I think, where to go with this? I like that you disrupt the patterns when you bring in the pictures, but I think it's important to see that when we're talking about being a doctor or a physician, that's very different from talking about being an NHS employee or a healthcare, which fill in your healthcare of choice, in the States, whatever it is, because being, the profession of being a physician is millennia, years old, if I say it like that. This is our predecessors would be shocked to see how cowed, how lukewarm, how unfeeling as human beings this bubble that prides themselves on we're being professionals and by not bringing our full human. No, I disagree, because the NHS, it served a lot of people in the great span of human history. It's hardly been around. Same with schooling, modern day schooling. This is not the standard for what it means to be a physician, and not even close. So what I would say is, it's really, wake up, you're a human being. If you would want to call yourself a physician, bring your whole self to this interaction with a patient. Don't make excuses. Show up as your full self. And I'm saying wake up because if some people think that the creativity has gone far away and we need a special training thing, they let themselves off the hook. But we wouldn't tolerate a doctor who shows up drunk to perform surgery and saying, no, this is my authentic self. It's like, wake up. You're about to do surgery. You can't afford to do that. And that's really when it comes to creativity, it's not a special thing that some people have or some people don't. Every time somebody's driving towards a yellow light and they have a choice to slow down or speed up a little bit, they're being creative in the moment to say, I'm going to get across to the other side because I've without running a red light. We're making creative decisions all the time. Creativity isn't writing. You don't need to do morning pages. You could just, start a podcast, same as you do, or call a friend, or just, you're on Instagram, record yourself as you walk to work, just making an observation about what your journey is. Document it. Don't try and put on, a show, which takes time, which you don't have. You just talk. You can do, when you make your lunch, if you cut your sandwiches in rectangles, cut them in triangles. Well, you just did something creative that's different. There's so many opportunities to do things that are different. So the people, and I don't think that's everyone. I think there may be a vocal minority where somebody may be, but the culture, I think, really is the feeling that doctors like us do things like this. But if we examined who said that and who actually believes that, if you did, talk to people, you find actually nobody actually believes that, or if they claim to, they're not consistent with that in their day-to-day life. So I think all of that, a bit of a rant to just say that, creativity isn't this far away thing that, if once upon a time I used to be creative, I used to play the clarinet or whatever. No, you're a creative being, full stop. Now be creative. Once you realize that if you believe you aren't, of course you're not going to. That's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That limiting belief, you'll find evidence for it wherever you go. But when you realize that actually there's enough evidence in the last hour of each person listening that they have been creative. They chose to listen to Billie Eilish whilst doing their veg prep. They are listening to a podcast whilst walking the dog. That's a creative choice. They are maximizing the time that they have. These are all creative. It's creative is just you're making something. You're not just following something that's been handed to you. The clothes you wore, you picked them out. Probably nobody told you this is what you need to wear. So it can seem simple, but I think if people think the solution is a far off thing, they let themselves off the hook. And really they don't diagnose the real issue. The issue is people might feel afraid, they might feel silly, but when you put that aside, kids don't worry about that. They just get on with it. And so we think kids are more creative than adults. They may have more evidence of it. But with all the experience that you've had and the knowledge you have, you actually have more Lego bricks to play with than the kids that you're admiring.
Mhm. Yeah, so I love that idea that people already are creative, and that I think that there's value in going along with prescribed ways of working and guidelines. That's important. Equally, people already are creative, so it's not that there doesn't need to be a creativity workshop. People don't need to do a master's degree in how to be creative because everybody already is creative, and it sounds to me like what you outline is it's a mindset. Yeah, it's a mindset that says, okay, these are the things that are interesting, these are the things that I love doing, and this is how I can do things differently, how I can do things better, and potentially in all sorts of different ways. And then our lives become richer as a result of that, and our patient care becomes better as well, doesn't it? Because that's how innovation and quality improvement happens, is through exactly some of the processes that we've outlined. But certainly our careers are better if we're able to, as you say, bring our whole selves to work and and think creatively about how we can enjoy work, how we can find enjoyment, how we can shape the environment around us in a way that's enjoyable, and at the same time makes patient care better, because the two things often will go hand in hand. And I'm interested in this idea of people then worrying what everybody else thinks. So if you go back to your story, so something happened, you noticed something in yourself, and with that person, you clocked, there was a problem here, and and you had a creative idea. How about I write a book, and then presumably you didn't worry that what anybody else was going to say. It's too difficult, it's too hard, you're never going to happen. Who are you to pull a book off like that? You just went for it. So tell me a bit more about the mindset that says, who cares what anybody else says, I'm just going to go for it and see where it leads.
Well, that mindset was helped hugely by being kicked out of med school, and uh, the experience of being blackmailed back into it and then leaving it, because there's a lot of guilt and shame that is part of the day-to-day experiences of most doctors that I've met, and ones where I've read their medical notes. The first job I got outside med school, the first time I was kicked out, was summarizing patient notes in a GP surgery. So I've gotten the inside scoop from just talking, observing. And when I was kicked out of med school, the guilt, the shame, my friends are moving forward, all of that stuff, it was a horrible experience. But I realized I didn't die when it happened. It was, oh, I'm still alive. And somehow I made it through the first year, second year, and life continued. I was still in touch with some of my friends. But the plan I'd agreed with my dad, had been derailed, I saw, wow, it's possible that this thing that I think is just everything that's shattered, but I'm still alive. Well, if I share an idea and it doesn't work, okay, next. Nobody's going to die if I put an idea for a book and nobody likes it or they laugh at me. Okay, big deal. Next idea. And I think that, but where this can be a problem for people is if their identity is bound up in they're a doctor and the big motivation, the mindset for them being a doctor is the prestige, the honor, the recognition. Nobody's going to make fun of me now because I have this position. So anything that looks like you could be jeopardizing your status of being somebody who's respected for being an intellectual, who's not indulgent. These are phrases, these are false, these are limiting beliefs that can keep people from enjoying the full experience of life that's readily available. And nobody is going to make, even if people make fun of you, as I found with the book with Medic SOS, one of the things I learned is everything isn't for everyone, and that's okay. Not everyone likes peanut butter. Not everyone likes YouTube. Not everyone likes, and yet these things have millions or billions of fans for them. But when you realize that what I'm doing is for someone, so I was not writing a post, the first response I gave to that medic, it wasn't for every medic in every situation who was struggling. It was specifically for this one person, and this one person responded positively. And I think when you do something for someone, that posture is different from if you're trying to please everyone, where you end up pleasing no one. And I think maybe a better approach if you think of if you were walking along by a swimming pool, and if a child fell in the swimming pool and you were there able to help them, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm not a lifeguard, and where's the lifeguard? There should be." You just rescue them. You do what you can in that moment. And I think that posture of humility, where you say, "This idea that I have is actually a gift. It's a benefit to someone out there. I don't know who they are, but I think somebody who's struggling with this, or somebody who likes, paintings of sunsets, would like this sunset idea that I want to paint. I'm going to paint it and share it. And if somebody comes with a snarky comment or say, why did you waste your weekend doing that? All they're saying is, this isn't for them. They're not the one I'm looking for. And I think alongside the thing of being creative, I think just the posture of humility and gratitude. We're alive. We're living at one of the greatest points in human history. The fact that you and I can have this conversation is amazing. This was impossible, 40 years ago. 30 years ago, literally impossible. And now it's possible. We have all this possibility available, but we're not using it. We're not using it to its fullest potential. And I think just a gratitude for where we are, the ability to do things, whether we do them or not. I think that posture of gratitude, humility, saying, I'm just privileged that I have, I was privileged to be able to help one person. I don't know who that person is. They posted anonymously, and I put something together, and lots of people contributed to a stranger helping me help others. And so if you're trying to help others or you're doing something generously, I think that can help people just get started, where they realize, you know what? If people laugh, it doesn't matter. This is a gift. You don't have to. Same with this podcast. Somebody could say, "Oh, this podcast is not." If they like 5-minute podcasts, this is too long. If they like 1 hour ones, it doesn't matter. If you don't like it, skip to the next thing. It's a gift. It doesn't make you a bad person or a good person for receiving it or rejecting it. You're just saying this isn't for you right now. Maybe later it will be. And somebody may listen to this and it's not for them. They skip it. 2 years later, they're in the right place to hear it. We're just sowing seeds, but when they grow up into whatever they're going to grow up into, that's not down to us. So I think if you have the posture of I think it was Robert Louis Stevenson who wrote Treasure Island, who said, just each day is an opportunity to sow seeds. Just keep sowing seeds. Share what you have. Notice what you notice. Create what you create. Do what you can with what you have. Connect with somebody else. Use it to connect with someone else, and let go of the outcomes. Because if you build your identity on the outcomes of what you do, you can be really frustrated and you can feel afraid of how can a doctor be doing something like just that stuff that's just there to rob you of enjoying life.
They're great tips. Um, when the book was finished, then, so tell me about some of the hints and tips that were in the book.
Yes. So the book Medic SOS, which you can get at okdoctor.net/SOS Sierra Oscar Sierra. And I read through it and was just blown. It was just what you'll find when you go there, and you can get a copy of the book, and for you can make a donation, you can pay towards it, or you can get a copy for free. It's fine. But what you'll find in the book is insights from medics around the world, different countries, different experiences. Some are doctors, some are former doctors, some are medical students. So just it's really good. But you'll see their real names, you'll see their faces, you'll see links to their social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And why that's important is before you even read anything, just flick through and see who's there. And you just download the book. Don't worry about whether you have time to read it. Just literally flick through it. You'll just see picture, 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 picture. And the message, number one message, which they communicate in the words they share, is you're not alone. And that's why the book is the way it is. You can just see those pictures and the thoughts which we can have when we're feeling overwhelmed that I'm alone, nobody gets this. That book is hopefully a thing that you can carry around with you, which says, no, I'm not alone, and challenge some of those negative thoughts that can have you feeling just just as if there's no hope. But just that one thing of realizing that you're not alone, there are others who are struggling with the same things, and there are those who've struggled and overcome. There are people who are willing to talk to you. There are quite a number of coaches like you, Matt, and others. There are people who will, if you will click on their link, you'll be able to talk to them. You could book a free call and just have from going from nobody gets me to you connect with Matt, you connect with some of the others, and later on that day you're having a chat that changes your life. So understanding that you are not alone, that is a false belief, that's a lie, it's not true. Regardless of how it feels, your feelings are lying to you, because what you'll see in the book is you're not alone. And why that's a fundamental thing to understand is when you realize that you're not alone, that there are others, then that opens you up to take the next steps that people recommend, which is talk to someone, connect with someone, share what's going on with you, reach out for help. It's not a sign of weakness to get help. It's a sign of strength. These are some of the things that were shared in Medic SOS. And those just taking, like as I shared at the beginning, just taking one step after the other, not trying to leap from where you are to where you need to be. Just take a step. You're not alone. Okay, I'm not alone. If you can believe that, or act as if that's true. Maybe they are, I can't believe that. But just pretend, go along with it. Pretend that it's true. Then if that's the case, then reach out to someone else, reach out to somebody in the book. That's what the book's designed for. Click on the link, say, thank you for your insight in the book. Here's what I'm struggling with. Or reach out to one of the coaches in the book. And this is not a plug for them. Nobody's paying me to say this. Matt didn't ask me to say this. But that's why I designed the book. I reached out to different people so that anyone who reads the book can find somebody that they can connect with and somebody who will be able to give them what they need. And I think that's when it's so you're not alone, and connect with somebody else, connect with someone in the book, reach out for help. If somebody wants to change their job or wants to know how to do their job in a different way, aside from the coaches, they can just look at the career paths. One thing I loved was looking at the LinkedIn profiles of the people in the book. Some amazing career journeys where you think, wow, how did they go from med school over there to they're on Wall Street over there, or they're scuba diving over here, or they're an army doctor, and it's just a fun thing to just get to play with. But just seeing, well, maybe that because I thought that could be a useful thing somebody could do, where they could say, well, if they could chart their path like that to end up being, working for YouTube as a chief medical officer, maybe I could do something like that. And those thoughts which say, I wonder if I could do X, Y, Z, those seeds will grow into something.
And I love the LinkedIn profile idea because it's so illuminating to see what people have done and people careers journey, because as you say, all of us, perhaps there's an assumption that we're alone, or if I have a slightly unusual career path, I assume that it's just me, or if I'm feeling a bit stuck and I don't know where I'm going, I assume it's just me. But the reality is there are lots of people that have had very creative career pathways and have meandered around, and lots of people have been stuck. And lots of people still are stuck, and lots of people have overcome it. And it's just realizing that actually it's a fairly common part of human existence. Maybe if I can
Yeah.
bring us to a close, David, and perhaps if I could ask you to summarize what we've talked about, what would be your top tips for doctors at work?
Yes. So the number one thing is realizing it's normal to feel that it's just you. You're alone, nobody has your experience, and therefore you can't talk about what you're going through. That's a normal thing to feel, but it isn't true. And once you can understand that, and also you are a creative person. You have what you need to live the life you were created to live. You already have it. So starting by realizing you're not alone, there's a community of people. You might be in a toxic environment, but the people in Medic SOS, they're available. They may not live where you live, but you can send them a message, DM, you could call them, you can, because some of them have their professional numbers on their websites. You can contact and connect with a community of people who, they're for you, they believe in you, and their career paths are available for you to copy if you need to. So you're not alone, you are creative. And what you'll notice right now, the things that bother you, the things that make you think, I wonder if such and such, those observations are not just valid, but they're important. And we need you to take a tiny step in seeing how to, follow that thought. We need you to.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Matt. I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for having me.